Hello, this is Mike Blank. I'm sitting with David Kettlewell today, the author of Priest, the play. We've been discussing some aspects of the play, and today I was going to ask David, could you elaborate a little bit on the role of mental illness, the mental instability of one of the characters, Jimmie, and how that plays into um, the idea of abuse?
Well, choosing to frame Jimmie Destine as having a mental illness was a device in the creation of the play. And it has several functions. If Jimmie had been a football star and a National Honor Society student and came from a stable family, it would have made it much harder for us to believe that the priests could victimize him because they would have provided him protection. The fact that he was mentally ill, although it doesn't really say what he's been diagnosed with, at no point in time in the play does it say this is his diagnosis, nor is there real clarity on what form of mental illness it is. But what it does is it allows the audience to think to themselves, as any rational person would, well, somebody who's a little crazy, who lives with his grandmother and, put that together with his homosexual behaviors with other kids where he's not a homosexual. It's almost, what is that? It's just, you've got a picture of somebody who's just like mixed up, just mixed up. And that's believable to an audience. A character like that is very, very believable. And not only believable, but also maybe somebody with whom an audience could have a lot of sympathy and empathy towards, just like, well, I can see that would be, that would be the kind of person that a priest would go after that wanted to rape kids, because they don't have much credibility when they claim they've been raped. Well, is he like in the psychiatrist's office? Is the kid's nuts? Or did he get raped? I mean, which is it? It makes the determinations quite difficult and much more complex. Again, it brought him sympathy, and it engages the audience in pondering what's going on. I always like the idea of a show where the audience isn't told what to think, but is allowed to come to their own conclusions. But you can activate that sense by certain questions, and this is a big if. How does his mental illness impact what's going on? And the audience can grapple with that. And one of my great pleasures as an author of books and also, things like movie scripts or plays is that I'm always just astounded at the fact that people read or listen to what I've created and come up with conclusions that are so very, very different from my own predispositions about who these characters are and what they did and where they are now. And it's just, it's kind of a source of wonderment to me. And that's why I've always really respected the role of the audience. It isn't the artist's place to tell the audience what a character means. The interpretation of the show is definitely in the province of the audience. And so I try to really stay out of their shtick. I try to make sure that the audience has something to think about that can be interpreted a variety of different ways. And so, that's kind of a large part. But I would say overall, I would just say that setting the character of Jimmie such that he had a mental illness was a device. It was a playwright's device to create more dimensions to the work.
Well, I think it's interesting too that you allow the audience to think about this in that the device of mental instability. It's not clear whether from the dialogue of the play, it's not clear whether that was caused perhaps by the abuse or whether that was part of the reason the priest is able to manipulate Jimmie so easily.
I just
Which,
want to point out that what you have just said is an interpretation of the show
yeah.
by an audience member that's a little different than mine. So, I mean, my point is that is another classic example of how you can look at things, and like you ask the question, did he have the mental illness prior to being, assuming he was, raped by the priest? See, that was never defined in the play. There's nothing in the play that will give you a definitive answer, and yet you're thinking about that. Well, that's what I wanted. I want people to think about what does this mean, and what did that mean, and what was this character's background, and this is the part that you've brought your interpretation to the show, which is great.
And I think
and it's an example of what I'm talking about.
right, and I think you're spot on with your with the idea that people can come up with their own interpretation, and I think that's part of the enjoyment of appreciating a piece of art. You take it internally and you process it and come up with a result. So well done, and thank you for that answer.